Engineering conversation and innovation. This is Schulich Connects, proudly sponsored by TD Insurance.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Anders Nygren. I'm the Vice Dean of the Schulich School of Engineering, and it is my pleasure this morning to be the host of this event. Bill Rosehart, our Dean, was unavailable, but he sends his regards to everybody. Thank you, everyone, for braving the cold this morning to come out. I'm really delighted to see that you're all able to join us for the Schulich Connects event to learn more about cybersecurity in a digital economy. And this event is proudly sponsored by TD Insurance. Before we get started this morning, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Good Stoney First Nations. And the city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Over the past decade, advancements in digital technology have really drastically changed the way we live. Coins and paper bills are rarely used. I know for me, the emergency $20 bill in my wallet has been there for months, if not years. I use credit cards or online payments for just about everything these days. And many of us now use a digital wallet or an app that stores most of our banking or credit card information. So how can we ensure that our personal information and those assets are safe and secure? Well, our panel today will discuss digital banking, blockchain technologies, and what the future has in store for us in cybersecurity. Before I pass it over to our speakers, just some logistics. So we will later in the event have a Q&A period. And when we get to that point for our in-person guests, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and a mic runner will come to you so that you have a microphone so that everybody can hear your question. And for the virtual guests, those of you that are joining us online, thank you for joining us, first of all. And second, please email your questions to ssemc@ucalgary.ca. I hope we have a way of sharing that information with our online guests as well on screen. I would now like to take a moment to introduce you to our moderator for today, Dr. Haris Karimipour, an associate professor in the Department of Electrical and Software Engineering here at the Schulich School of Engineering. Dr. Karimipour holds the Canada Research Chair Tier 2 in Secure and Resilient Cyber-Physical Systems and is the director of the Smart Cyber-Physical Systems Lab. She has helped pioneer the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning for security analysis of critical infrastructure. Dr. Karimipour has received many awards, including Canada's Top 20 Women in Cybersecurity by IT World Canada, and the Most Inspiring Women in Cyber Award by IT Security Guru. I would now like to pass things over to Haris, who will introduce you to today's panel. Over to you, Haris.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I joined University of Calgary in 2021. Just to add a little bit of detail, my research generally focused on the application of AI in security of operational technology, which are kind of backbone of our critical infrastructure. So I'm not going to take much of the time, and I'm going to introduce our panelists for today. We have three awesome panelists. I'm going to start with Casey McDonald, an author and cybersecurity expert. Casey is a retired police officer with 3 decades of investigative and crime prevention experience. Her book, Cybercrime, Awareness, Prevention, and Response, is a comprehensive Canadian resource about how cybercrime affects individual, business, government, institution, and organization. The Governor General of Canada has invested Casey with the member of the Order of Merit of the Police Forces in recognition of her commitment to building awareness of cybersecurity. Excellent. She's also a speaker with the Speakers Bureau of Canada and was awarded one of Canada's top women in cybersecurity from IT World Canada. Welcome, Casey. If you want to add anything.
Thank you so much. No, thank you very much for inviting me.
So our next speaker is Dr. Lorenzo Di Carli, an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Software Engineering here at the Schulich School of Engineering. He obtained his PhD in computer science from University of Wisconsin-Madison And prior to joining UCalgary, Dr. DeCarli was a faculty member in the computer science department at the Colorado State University. And his research looks to solve challenges that may arise when designing cyber systems that are both secure and usable. Welcome.
Thank
Do
you.
you want to add anything?
No, thank you. That all very much. Thank you very much.
Sure. And our last speaker is Dr. Steve DeRue, also an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Software Engineering here at Schulich School of Engineering. Dr. DeRue has a broad research interest in edge computing, distributed machine learning system, blockchain services, and artificial intelligence for IT operations. Prior to joining UCalgary, he was a chief architect at Bitquip Corp, focusing on blockchain-based digital asset trading and brokerage technology. And he also worked on the research and development of the network function virtualization and Cisco's first NFV orchestrator. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Hadis.
Okay, so perfect. To get our panel warm up, I have a few questions. So I'm going to start with one of them, and feel free to add more discussion, change it as you would like. So my first question is, how important is cybersecurity in our current age, given the increasing use of digital technology and application? Do you want to start?
Absolutely. Well, I think that cybersecurity and all the technologies that we're using, apps, processes, are incredibly important to us at home, at work, and at school. But we have to realize that every time we go online, we're being tested. We're being tested by some very powerful forces and factors that are hoping to, infiltrate our networks. They want to collect and use and disclose of our personally identifiable information. And the big part of it is it's without consent. And when that happens, it can cause problems and it can wreak havoc in our lives, obviously. And I think that people need to understand that cybersecurity is incredibly important, but they also have to understand some of the risks as well. And that's where, over the years, I've dealt with a lot of people that have told me stories that have affected them personally and professionally. And I like to give people a glimpse of some of those real people and real stories when I do my presentations. And I think that's we have to remember that cybersecurity is also about people. So,
perfect. Good point. What do you want?
Yes, I think I don't have much to add except to underscore that I think we really need to think that everything that 15, 20, 25 years ago used to be done through a variety of systems, some even still paper-based, some maybe computerized but still isolated. Now, it really goes through online internet-connected systems, and we probably give out more personal data much more frequently than we used to a variety of entities that are not always well-intentioned. So it's really important to see cybersecurity as this sort of pervasive capability that we need to worry about, because everything we do is mediated by some type of online system, and if those systems are not secure, that affects pretty much every single aspect of our life.
Sure. I'll address it from the digital currency perspective, and we used to only use banknotes, but then we started to use credit cards, online payment, and now we're entering a stage and more people start to use cryptocurrencies and the digital wallets. So this poses more and more challenges to cybersecurity, because if you use credit cards, then if you have to protect your PIN or protect the cards or your username password. But if we start to use the cryptocurrencies, then all we'll have to protect that private key, which is some hash code, and there could be much larger amount linked to that private key. If the private key is lost, there's no credit card companies to complain, then your whole assets will be lost. So this proves how important cybersecurity is for today.
Okay, good point. So now that we kind of raise awareness toward the importance of the cybersecurity, I think it's interesting for our audience to know how cybersecurity technology can help us to basically keep our personal and private data safe.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I would say there are really two ways in which cybersecurity technology can help protecting our data. One is proactively by preventing fundamentally the bad guys from accessing systems they're not supposed to access. And that particular capability is not just technological, but also human. It comes in terms of having the right tools to deploy and know where to deploy them, know how to interpret the signals they gave you, but also training not just cybersecurity analysts and professionals, but the users in terms of identifying risky situations, knowing what behaviors to avoid and what behavior are actually more desirable, and so far and so on. So the other capability in which cybersecurity technology can help, and I think this is more in terms of research and it's more on the academic community, is making sure that we keep whoever collects our data, which can be the companies that develop software, mobile app and such, making sure we keep them honest. Like, for example, some of the things I do in my research is analyzing mobile apps to check which type of data they collect, whether the data they collect is compatible with what they say they're going to do with them, whether when they present you like a form to consent, then they stay faithful to the consent, the form, the information they presented you. So really, research in terms of understanding how our personal data is collected and whether it's collected in a way that we find acceptable.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, the technical safeguards, which, the experts here beside me understand completely. But I can tell you that the bad actors out there would rather come after us than those technical safeguards, because they know that we have weaknesses and we have vulnerabilities. And they oftentimes try to attack our mind. And so we have to understand that they are going to have advantages when our mind is distracted and disrupted and in a state of chaos. So they have created these, what they call TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, that deliberately try to distract us and create chaos. So we have to understand that and recognize those TTPs. And even though we have the best technical safeguards in the world, and we do these days, I mean, as best as we can right now, and they keep getting better, it's the mind that we really need to work on. A cybercrime is often an attack on our state of mind, and I'll again just tell you a really quick story. I had a call within the last month from a gentleman, middle-aged professional fellow, and he met a woman online, and of course her microphone was not working, so they had to chat. She lived very close to him. They started to talk. She wanted a relationship, and she coaxed him into getting undressed in front of a web camera. Now, this gentleman who, just was absolutely beside himself. He was absolutely devastated. He said, "Why did I do this? I can't believe I am so stupid." He didn't know what to do about it. And, I had to kind of talk him down from it. But basically, as soon as he got offline, she started to, of course, her demeanor completely changed. She started to demand money. And, of course, they negotiated a certain amount of money. He tried to actually wire that money, and the bank stopped that transaction from going through. And I tell this story because all the technical safeguards in the world didn't stop his mind from doing that at that time. So I think that we also have to focus on our state of mind when we are online. And I want to bring that to the table because I know that we do have experts that really understand the technical part of it, but our mind is something totally different, and sometimes we forget about it.
Yeah, perfect point. Thank you for sharing, Steve.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Kathy, for sharing these true stories. I mean, it's like lessons for everyone. And so from the research, the technologies, there are many technologies that can use the cybersecurity to enhance the experience of our, everyday life. There's a basic technologies like from the client side, like multi-factor authentication, authorization, and more importantly, there are technologies that uses artificial intelligence from the financial institution side. I'll give you an example of my research group recent progress in using machine learning to detect suspicious transactions. Because I'm sure most of us have used international money transfer or inter-financial institution money transfer. There's an organization called SWIFT, which is the international organization for coordinating money transfers among the financial institutions. And they deal with millions of the transactions every day. And certainly in these millions of transactions, there are transactions that are related to money laundering. This is a big concern for that could be related to crimes and terrorist activities. And the one of the challenges is that these financial institutions, they don't have the full picture because they manage, for a bank, they manage their clients' transactions and information profiles. And so the banks know their clients, but they don't know that much about how these money transfers are handled internationally. The SWIFT knows about the transfer information, but they don't know the detailed account activity for their clients. So what we can do is we can use a privacy-preserving technology called federated learning, which will allow the machine learning, artificial intelligence to be done distributedly, meaning that these participants, including the financial institutions and the SWIFT money transfer organization, to learn, use machine learning to learn the model by themselves, and then to somehow aggregate the model and to collectively create a better predictive modeling. So in this way, we can enhance the artificial intelligence assisted prediction to prevent financial crimes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So the next question is about the advancement, general advancement. Can you think about any specific advancement in the technology that is kind of helping to advance cybersecurity? Any specific development that can have a major impact in developing cybersecurity technology? Whoever wanted to start. You want to Steve?
You mean
any specific development? Can you think of any development, like, I don't know, something like artificial intelligence could definitely have an impact in advancement of the cybersecurity? Any other thing that comes to your mind?
I mean, the artificial intelligence is definitely an important technology in this area, and we can. There are also other technologies, like one technology I find is quite interesting is called zero knowledge proof. Yeah. So this technology is to allow the participants, owner of some assets, to prove that they own these assets, but without revealing the actual information. For example, I have $10,000 and I want to prove that I have this amount of money, but I don't reveal my other information. And a more concrete example is that there is a comic book called Finding Wally. You know, there's a very small character in a comic book, but it's very hard to find. But you can prove, but how do I know if this character exists in this book? What I can do is I can use a white paper and have a very small cutout to show this character and to someone who doesn't believe there is such character, but I don't have the exact information. I can only use this small peephole to show there's a character there. Yeah, so that is the zero knowledge proof. And I think that's
I think that there's been some great advancements in IoT, so Internet of Things devices. All of us are connecting more and more to the internet through our devices, through apps. And of course, our fridges, stoves, running shoes, blood pressure monitoring kits. Doorbell cameras are a big one, IP cameras that are streaming, listening devices and such. But again, with everything, there are always risks. And, a lot of the information that is being produced these days on TikTok and IoT devices and such, I just, put that out there, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, whether it's IoT devices, all of the information is going out. And there's a lot of outbound information. And sometimes the people that are producing the information, whether it's an IP camera or a video, they're not compensated for what they're doing and producing. And they don't even realize that their information is being used for other purposes. For an example, with doorbell cameras, there are websites out there that are streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people that have not changed their default password from the manufacturer on their IP cameras. So there's one website in particular, and I've been watching a couple here in Calgary, and they have an IP camera in their living room. They've had it going for a couple of years. I've written 2 letters to the actual website saying, please take these poor people offline. They have no idea that their IP camera is streaming 24 hours a day. They're walking around. I've watched them celebrate Christmas and Halloween 2 years in a row now. And the website does not respond to me. It's hosted out in Eastern Europe. And of course, they make money off of this. They have advertising, and they're sending you advertising when you go to their website, and so there are some risks. So they're great advancements. People are using all these wonderful devices, but there is a lack of awareness, and there are risks with everything that we're using. And even, I'm sure we're going to talk about blockchain, but that's a fantastic, innovation and protocol. And at this point, it hasn't been defeated or corrupted. So let's see. But for the most part, every type of security out there has been exploited. It seems that the bad actors are one step ahead. So it's great advancements, but we always have to kind of tread slowly sometimes.
Yeah, I wanted to go back quickly to the part about AI, which I think is quite interesting. So we all have seen things like language model, ChatGPT and tools like that. So there is some work now that shows that those tools can be useful support for analysts. So for example, you can do things like, suppose you analyze a malware from your customer network and you want to understand what this malware is trying to do. Normally what you would do is to run in a very controlled environment and use some skills and some particular specialized tool to kind of look into the code of malware. What you could do in this case is, for example, give a chunk of code from this malware to a large language model, to an AI tool, and ask the tool, okay, can you tell me what this particular piece of code is trying to do? So you don't have to do it yourself. Or you could present a number of symptoms, like some weird stuff is going on on the network of one of my customers. Based on the symptoms, can you tell me what potentially is going on, what the threat actor is trying to do? So they can really help sort of giving decision support to an analyst, but at the same time, it's really cut both ways because there's plenty of evidence in this area and other areas that those tools can give plenty of unreliable information. So they're very good at synthesizing knowledge, making sense of enormous amount of data, you can feed them enormous amount of data and then ask them questions about it. And they're really smart in doing so, but they're also extremely unreliable. So I believe they're going to be a significant help in a variety of security-related tasks, but also that at least in the near future, we're still going to need human experts to really pay a close look at what these tools generate to make sure they're not sort of making up stuff, which they do frequently.
Thank you very much. So we kind of covered what other technology advancement helped the development in the cybersecurity, but can you tell me what do you think is the biggest development specifically in cybersecurity in the recent years? If you wanted to add anything, we kind of covered in the previous conversation, but if you can think of anything else.
Well, I think that there are some big developments in AI for sure. We'll see where that all goes, and it's kind of a race. I'm sure that there are some amazing researchers doing wonderful work, and it certainly is helping everybody in day-to-day life. But in some cases, all those 100 people that sent in the letter saying, let's put a stop on this because it's going so quickly. We want to look at AI and what it's actually doing. And, for an example, there's this robot that's on Instagram with millions of followers and modeling designer clothes, getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and really, taking the place and substituting a legitimate model, modeling these clothes. So there's a lot of different applications, and some of it seems that the motivation is money. It's a race for money. There's a lot to be made in this sort of area. So we have to, again, a good example just to walk slowly and test things because we sometimes are we're the commodity, and we've seen it with our own personally identifiable information and who's using it. It's being bought, sold, and traded in the dark web every day, used for synthetic identifications. So we really need to think about ownership because just because we get compensated, it doesn't mean that we're still not a victim and our personally identifiable information is not going to be used. So I'm looking hopeful with blockchain and possibly other things that we can verify ourselves, and we can own our own information, even medical information, our own PII, and be the user that's in control of that without a third party. And I think that's the whole benefit of blockchain, is we can eliminate those compromises, which have been websites and apps that maybe they don't have the money, the people, the training, or whatever it is, but they're not careful with our information. And we are the recipients of some bad stuff. And so even though we get compensated by our bank or by the government or whatever, our information is still out there. So, I threw a lot of stuff out there in that answer. So do you want that?
Yeah, I would think for me that's all. I think those are all excellent points, and I would add for me another big development is the fact that people now are more aware than they were just a few years ago. They ask themselves questions. They ask us questions. Just to tell another story, a couple of years ago when I was still living on the East Coast, I was going back from Boston Airport to home, and I was in the shuttle with this really down-to-earth, typical New England guy who ran this airport shuttle company. I was chatting with him. And at some point, this guy comes up with this question. You do security, so I have a question for you. I met this Russian lady online who really wants to marry me. Like, we're doing great. It's amazing. But she is asking me for money for the plane tickets, and I'm not sure I should send her the money. Similar story to what Katie just said. And I was like, no, immediately I was like, no, just drop everything, never send her money. Don't do that, It's a scam. There is not a real woman. It's probably a Russian dude. So he was like, okay, and I got a bit mortified, but kind of he took the point well. And the fact that he asked me that question, 10 years before, this guy would probably have been scammed. But now people hear things, people ask themselves questions, they know that there are those problems. This is a very simple example, but it shows that at least now people know that the problem exists. Even at higher level, the level of politics, if you look at Europe, California, privacy legislation, which is well written and fairly useful, like the GDPR in Europe or CALOPA in California, now those things have been passed, have been enforced. So I think we are, as a society, slightly better positioned than just 10 years ago, and I think this already makes a lot of positive difference.
Okay, perfect. So we kind of, you mentioned, Casey, about blockchain. So our next question is about blockchain. Can you explain what's blockchain and how it can help advancing cybersecurity, or how it can impact cybersecurity?
Well, okay, here I was sitting beside these professors, but I will try to just at a very low level. I have a very positive perspective on blockchain. I have my expertise. I'm not an expert in this area, but from my understanding, it is public. It's 100%. It's not owned by anyone. It has real-time security. It's the users own their information, and it eliminates a third party, which is really the essence of blockchain. It hasn't been defeated or corrupted, as I mentioned before. And I think there's a lot of opportunity with it. Currently, it's being used for Bitcoin, and it works very well in that application. But, what about applications for our own medical information? Why do we need to go somewhere else to get our information? It's our information. We are the users. Perhaps we could own that. So I think from a privacy perspective, security, ownership, access, it has a lot of positivity. And I think that once we enter in with a third party, that's where we have a lot of these compromises. So, from a user standpoint, again, at a very low level understanding of blockchain, because it's very advanced technology, it's a protocol, and we can all use it. Again, it's public, and it's real time updating security. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity. When we talk about opportunities, I think that's a big one.
Do you want to add, Steve?
Sure. Yeah. Blockchain, to me, I think using one word to describe its functionality is it's trust. So if we don't use blockchain, and we usually need to rely on a centralized organization. For example, if we deposit our funds into the bank, we actually have the trust to the bank. We trust the bank will be operational for the coming years, and the funds there will be safe. And this is usually true for big financial institutions, but when there are some crises, these financial institutions are not that trustable. So to solve this problem, then we have the blockchain, for example, Bitcoins. Instead of introducing trust to one single large organization, blockchain uses decentralization, meaning that all the participants, they take some responsibilities to keep this blockchain operational while they are using the blockchain. So this kind of the trust can not only fuel the money transfers or other financial related activities, but also to support generic computing such as smart contracts. Yeah, I'll give you an example how this trust can benefit the general public. So let's say if we have a few parties and they want to share the resources, for example, the telecommunication operators, they have the competition, right? They usually don't want to collaborate or cooperate with each other. But with the blockchain, it enables them to share their, say, bandwidth and to share their resources. This is especially important when we are using 5G and 6G wireless technologies, where each base station can only cover a small area. So with this kind of eliminating the requirement of the trust, because they don't have the trust as the competitors, they can still cooperate with each other. And if, let's say, party A is using the resource of party B, they can use public algorithm to distribute that profit or the usage fees. I think that's the very important contribution of the blockchain.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add shortly a different perspective because I'm a big blockchain skeptic, and I feel like I've been partly validated by everything that happened in the last 2 years. I think everything has been said here is true. Like the scientific foundation is very solid. The type of issues of trust that you can solve using blockchain, they are there, and so that's everything is true. But also there is a variety of human and business reasons why there's been a lot of hype around it, and blockchain is not always the best tool for a particular problem. I would say if you're a business leader and you're thinking about using the blockchain for whatever purpose in your line of business, I would say, again, this is my opinion, there's about 1% chance that the blockchain is the best tool to do what you want to do, and 99% chance that you would be better served by more traditional tools. Now, I would say, if you're thinking about doing that, you should ask someone who's an expert but doesn't have skin in the game, like someone like Steve here. Is the blockchain appropriate to my use case? And get like really down to an expert, honest opinion, not like one of the Twitter guys who's trying to make money out of it, on whether the blockchain is the right thing for you. Because it's an amazing tool. It's great in very specific situations. You just need to know that you're using it for the right thing.
We have to be very clear about the use case of the blockchain because it has the significant caveats, which is it's expensive and slow to run it, especially for the proof of work blockchain, where there are millions of participants. Yeah, so the justification of the use case is important. Let's say if we're logging into the uCalgary system, management system, information management, then we naturally have the trust to the university, so we don't have to use a blockchain to solve this. That's important.
Perfect. Okay, I have many questions that I would like to ask, but we don't have that much time. So thank you very much, Casey, Lorenzo, and Steve for the insightful comment. I'm sure our audience enjoyed it. For the next portion, we were going to take questions from the audience, both in person and the online one. So if anyone has any question, you can raise your hand. Go ahead. Yeah, you. So any of you that wanted to answer.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for what you shared today. It was really interesting to hear about. So I have a question more so about LLMs. I think it was touched on a little bit earlier on in what you'd said, but how do you, let's say if you're using an LLM AI, let's say for example, you can use them a lot easier these days. You can just go onto any internet browser, or you can just sign up for an easy account and you'd have access. How do you feel about the impact of, let's say if you ask something like ChatGPT a question, you ask them to identify what, for example, malware might be doing. There are cases where the response isn't necessarily true, it's not necessarily accurate, but as a user, you might not be able to immediately tell how accurate the response is. How do you feel that potential gap between the trust that a user might have for the LLM versus the actual accuracy of the LLM will have on people's ability to find correct information? Because that's still an issue these days. Like, for example, even if you just ask a question to Google, you might not, like the top results might not necessarily be true. And how do you feel that situation translates when we're using LLMs? Sorry, that was a bit long.
So who wanted to answer?
Maybe I can take this because I was the one who brought up AI first. And I think this is a very interesting question because you brought up this issue, which is well known, of automation bias. We humans tend to think the computer is right. And that's because for the most of the existence of computers, the way they function was based on sort of a very explicit attempt to provide guarantees that the answer is correct. You know, most classic algorithms, computer science, are provably correct. Whatever answer they give you is always correct. right? So we're used to think the computer is right. Now, LLMs use a very different, very complicated technology, and they're much more humans in the sense that they make up stuff which may or may not be true, also depending on the data they were trained on. So and I encourage my students when I teach them programming to use them, but also to make sure what they give is correct. So my point there would be, you can use LLMs in two cases. One is when you're a subject expert and you can judge the correctness. There is still the advantage in using them, even if you already know your stuff, because they can produce content quickly. They can you bounce ideas with them, like almost like if you have a friend that is also an expert. And so if you can kind of judge the quality of the answer, you can use them. Or even if you cannot by yourself, but you have a way to judge whether the answer is correct. For example, you ask him to write a piece of code, and you can run the piece of code and look at the output and see, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't. Then if you have that way to verify that what they say is correct, then you can use them. Now, in all other cases, I would be very careful about using those type of tools for anything but very low stakes tasks.
Perfect. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that there are some, again, ethical types of considerations too in using ChatGPT to, in a business setting, to create or do your work. Again, I guess it's substituting people in some cases, but I have a really quick example because I asked ChatGPT to give me a definition of cybersecurity for some presentations that I had done for some adults and for some kids. And of course, no mention of people in any of the answers: processes, practices, devices, computers, technologies, but never did it mention people. And I mean, I really believe that cybersecurity is about people. And, I thought it was quite interesting. And so I like what you're just saying there, Doctor, in that if you're looking and you have some ideas, because I really do think that cybersecurity is about people, that's my belief, it has some bias there in some of the answers. So if you do have some opinions on something, and then you can check it to see if what it's telling you, it follows along. So I think that's an important point as well.
Sure. I'll add. I think at this stage, I'll take it more like a tool for information searching or to look up stuff, but I won't rely on ChatGPT for for decision making, because sometimes I find that if they are answering the question with false information in a very convincing tone. So that's the challenge I found. I think it will improve over time, but we are more. We need to be very careful in using it to take it as a reference rather than to fully rely on it for decision making.
Thank you very much. So the next one is our online question. We often hear, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. How do we, as the general public, stay on top of all of these technological development and potential risk so we don't get taken advantage of? Who want to go first?
Well, yeah, this is kind of my line of work here, because I do a lot of awareness training, and I think that we need to talk to people, help them understand the risks, obviously, recognize when there is something, where to go to report, how to report, recognize whether it is against the law, what's happening, what is the actual types of incidents, because I mean, back in the old days, everything was cyberbullying, whether it was harassing phone calls or fraud or theft, everything. Well, that has changed, but we also have to recognize that the cyber criminals are always one step ahead, and they're always testing us. They're studying our human behavior and our psyche and our human nature. And now we're getting, multi-persona impersonation where they're using two aspects of our human behavior, like herd mentality and expert opinion. And when they use the two together, it's very, very powerful. So we have to keep talking about this stuff and making people aware, because they'll start to recognize, that this was just not coincidental. This was time. This was impersonation. These were the emotions used in social engineering. And that's, the anonymity and all those things that make you feel uneasy and chaotic in our minds. They are deliberate and they're willful. And so I think that's where the awareness comes in, because a lot of people had no idea that people can be so mean and cruel and want to steal from them or take their photos and use their information without consent.
Do you want to add anything, Steve?
Yeah, sure. The public should know the importance and how of the being aware of the technology advancement, because today the artificial intelligence, especially the generative AI, are advancing really fast, and this might be good for cybersecurity, enhancing the cybersecurity. But I feel that there's a competition between the security side and the hacker side, or this information side. For example, I can find the videos on Twitter or X for some disinformation about the war and about other major events, and people cannot tell whether it is real footage or it is generated by AI. And even there are some of the state-of-the-art tools that is used to check if the video is generated. They cannot tell if this video is a real video. I think the chance is 50-50. Yeah, I can also find some other tools which are amazing. For example, I can find a video of Taylor Swift speaking very fluent Mandarin. Yeah, but that is generated by a tool of AI to do the real-time translation. Yeah. So all you need to do is just record your own voice, and then upload the video and along with your own voice, and then you have a generated video of someone else speaking in another language using your voice. I think that is definitely amazing, but it creates so much challenge for taking the video as an evidence, because you don't know. So the public must know this kind of the new technology to be aware, and to need to always check if the video or if any images or any other information is true.
Thank you.
Just to say, yeah, we're all very busy and it's hard to keep up, especially as user of technology rather than designer of technology. But I would say it's probably a good idea every once in a while to refresh our understanding of what are the problems and what our behavior should be related to those problems. And there are people like Katie who are very good at explaining those issues and are raising awareness about those issues. So the last point I would like to make, when you refresh your knowledge about cybersecurity as a user of technology, make sure you get your information from sources that are dependable and reliable. As Steve was saying, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so that's important.
Perfect. We have time to take one more question from the audience. Go ahead.
Hi there. China and the CCP are building the largest repository of genetic data in the world by far. And my question is, we're at the dawn of this AI, these AI technologies, right? And LLMs are one thing, but as we move towards more general AI or or generalized AI. I think the tools there with a data set that large are extreme. I'm a biologist. There's a lot that we can mine from those types of data sets in a lot of positive ways, some negative ways. So my question is, Canadians, in a democracy, who should own that kind of data, and how does one protect it? Should it be our governments? Should these be private companies? These data sets are opportunities for huge changes to human health, but how do we protect them? Because I think there's a lot of negative things that could happen if the wrong actors get access to that kind of information.
Thank you. Who want to go first?
Go ahead.
So there's a couple of caveats there. I would say, first of all, yes, those data sets can have a gigantic benefit for mankind, but right now they have probably more benefits in terms of monetary benefits for the entities that collect them and use them for various purposes. So I would also be careful in thinking that because AI has seen such amazing progress, it will continue to do so at the same progress. Right now, we don't have any evidence that the improvements related to AI are going to continue at the same pace. It's also possible we're going to encounter a situation where this generation of AI technology is going to hit the limit, and then there's going to be a longer time where we figure out how to make it better. So I would say don't necessarily expect AI is going to improve everything in a short period of time, because that may not happen. The other thing is, yes, who owns the data? That's an excellent question, and it's very complicated to answer. Now, it stands to reason that probably just having all data owned by private entities is not the world we want to live in, just because the goals of a private entity for its very nature are more in terms of profit than any sort of more benefit or consumer protection, right? That said, there is still benefit in sharing those data, and for sure there is benefit in using them to build better tools, but I think that should be mediated by privacy regulation. As I mentioned earlier, we have seen now in Europe, we've seen in certain parts of the United States, well-written privacy legislation that puts some checks and balances around those problems. There's also been instances on privacy legislation that maybe is not so well-written. So the hope for the future is that the politics side of things learn how to deal with this problem and how to put legal checks and balances also here in Canada around the use and the collection of those data.
Thank you. You want to?
Yeah, I mean, websites are like sponges, and websites that are collecting biometric information are highly targeted by cyber criminals. Again, they can buy, sell, and trade that information today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. So there's really no shelf life on it either. And that's the other part of it. So again, it speaks to the awareness standpoint. Again, as Doctor was saying here, the information may not stay in Canada, so it doesn't fall under our legislation. Other people have access to it, like engineers, like vendors, and other people within organizations. And so there's risks there for insider threats, and all sorts of other problems go along with it, like human error. So do we trust this information with other organizations? We're giving it out, even like an online dating site. You think about and hospitals and universities are highly targeted as well. So, and then I guess some of these are private companies, as you were mentioning. So our data, once we give it to them, it goes with them when the company is sold, when the organization is sold. All the DMs, everything goes with it. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, it comes back to awareness. People have to be more selective when they start sharing their information online, but they're not thinking that way. They're not thinking of the value of every single click, and their passwords, their IP address, everything. And then, of course, once they start sharing that and that website is breached, then all of that information could be exposed, and then they could be victims of credential stuffing attacks and password spraying attacks and all the rest of the stuff that happens. So I think it's just a big awareness thing, and we need to have control of our own personal information in some way.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. So the security and the privacy of the data is more and more critical for the democracy. Yeah. So this can be reflected in many factors. So healthcare is one factor. If someone evil who owns all the human genetic information. Yeah, so there can be unexpected consequences. Also, we've heard that the social media can use big data to know every user's political perspective, then to tailor the information to control the user's, kind of a mindset implicitly, so that it will eventually impact the vote. So that is, to me, it's a bigger concern. That's why it is critical today to develop technologies that is used to enhance the privacy of the data, and more importantly, the governments and countries over the world should make regulations to enforce such requirement for protecting the data privacy. Yeah, that I think from this perspective, Europe is leading the world in this area. In this initiative. Back to 2018, they already had the regulation called GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation. That is in effect back to 2018. It doesn't allow the bigger companies to collect the private data. Well, so that's why we need some privacy preserving distributed AI technology. And to answer the question, who should own the data? Yeah, I thought about this question for many times. The user, who generates the data, should own the data. The government or the companies or other organizations should not own the data. The user should have the full ownership of the data and should benefit from the financial interest of the data. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think it's a perfect spot to end the discussion. It was my pleasure to moderate this session, and thank you very much, Casey, Lorenzo, and Steve. So I would like to send it back to you for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Hadis. I'm sure this discussion could go on all morning, but we are coming close to 9 a.m. So as Hadis said, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Hadis, Kathy, Lorenzo, and Steve, for hosting a wonderful discussion here today and providing your insights and expertise. Thanks to everybody in attendance, both in person and online, for spending part of your morning with us. We hope you have enjoyed yourself, and I hope that you will join us for our next iteration of Schulich Connects. That'll be on November 23rd. The topic is Nature-Inspired Engineering Solutions for a Sustainable and Regenerative Future. Keep an eye on your email inbox for the announcement and the invitation to register for that. And until then, thank you again for joining us. Walk and drive carefully out there, please. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this Schulich Connects, proudly sponsored by TD Insurance. We'll see you next time.